Welcome to another Endurance Productions movie review. Spared no expense, got a little bit of a green screen thing I'm fooling around with, new format. We'll try it for a while. If it works out, great. If not, we'll just move on without it. Just for the movie review this evening that I'd like to do, pulled out a classic Wes Craven film, but it's not exactly a horror movie. It's just something a little bit different that he did in the early 80s. 1982's classic Swamp Thing. What can I say? Watched it growing up, and it has a few eerie moments in it, mainly because the special effects in the movie are pretty neat. If you can get past the campy comic book scenes in the movie. It's based on a DC Comics character of the same name, and it stars Louis Jordan and most notably Adrienne Barbeau, who shows up in John Carpenter films and Creepshow, other horror movies of the like, and early 80s classics. The debacle over Swamp Thing. Where do I start? Let's start with the rating department. When Swamp Thing was shot, we didn't yet have a PG-13 rating like we do now. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it did not come out until 1984 whenever they released Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. It was the first movie that had the PG-13 rating. Just more and more movies were crowd pleasers, but they had subject matter in them that were probably a little bit over the top for parental guidance films. So the US rating system initiated the PG-13 rating. Swamp Thing, being released before then, had a PG rating. As with many of the late 70s, early 80s movies that you tend to see on the old video shelves, they came out with a PG rating, but they'll probably have some bad language and yes, some slight nudity in the movies, things of that nature. So you have to be a little careful from that age, or from that era back then when they only had a PG and then the next rating was an R. So there was not much of a middle ground back then. Good old Swamp Thing here. It basically delivers all the campiness, the action of a comic book movie, but also has some pretty cool special effects that will probably appease most horror movie buffs. Another noteworthy aspect of this presentation is that it had different distributors overseas than it did here in the United States. The distributor here in the United States, when they picked it up in 2000 and said, hey look, let's release this on video, on home video, VHS, and then later on DVD upon the sales of that. Well, in 2000, when they got together to bring out this edition on VHS tape, they used the film negative from the overseas distribution, which included certain questionable scenes that should not, or was not the intention of the studios that were going to be releasing it in the United States. It was not their particular artistic view to release these scenes in the movie. There are a couple of scenes of nudity and a couple of other action scenes that have been non-trimmed, for that matter, that snuck their way onto this PG version here. There was some sort of research. I did a little bit of research. There was a debacle where, or a dilemma where I think a mother, trying to look out for her children, I guess, she went and made a big stink about this video having those extra scenes in them, and was released with a PG rating, even though they tried to explain that it was released before we even had a PG-13 or even a middle ground rating. She still pushed for it to be removed from the shelves. So because of the one woman out there, and I will not use any names, the one woman protecting her family, they yanked all these copies that you see here from the shelves, and whenever they re-released it on DVD recently, it is the American version that does not have these scenes added in. So if you can get around on eBay and Amazon and pick up a 2000 version, you will get the uncut Wes Craven edition, basically, or the genuine cut of the movie. These extra scenes, you can pick them out. They don't really flow right into the movie. You can tell they were kind of shot secondary and spliced into the movie for later distribution overseas. As with many films, Dawn of the Dead 1978 comes to mind when talking about this type of situation. Dario Argento and George Romero had an agreement that George could have it the way he wanted it in the US and Dario could have it the way he wanted it overseas. So Dario gave it his little spin and made his own cut overseas, and that's how you end up with different versions a lot of times. Some are good, some are better, some are not so good. But If you can get the uncut version, I highly recommend it over the other one, mainly because it just has all the scenes in it, and I'm a film nerd, and I just like that kind of thing. But anyway, 1982 classic, Wes Craven. I'd probably give it at least about 4, probably about a good 6.5 on a scale of 10. Need to see it, mainly because it's a Wes Craven film, but also it delivers some decent special effects. Watch out for those monster transformation scenes. They're very good. This is B. West Jr. at Endurance Productions.